I got into advertising probably in a more traditional way because I went to school. And when I was in school, I had an instructor who said, hey, he was my advertising, I took an advertising course and I quite liked it. And he said, yeah, you should pursue that. And prior to going to university, I remember really liking the stories that were told on television in these little tiny bite-sized pieces. I loved the fact that the best thing on television when I was growing up were the commercials. And so when I talked to this instructor and he said, go into advertising, I thought, sure, why not? So I went to graduate school and got a master's degree in communications with a specialization in broadcast advertising, which I don't even know if that exists anymore, but that's, at the time, it existed. And I got out of school and I got a job at Saatchi & Saatchi, not knowing anything. Just by the way, going to graduate school for advertising is not at all necessary, and I wouldn't recommend it. Just FYI, don't do that. Go to portfolio school or something like that. Don't do that. Because I had I came out of school and I didn't actually understand what it was. And it was all a bunch of theory and a bunch of people who had never worked in the industry where I learned all about organizations and how people work, which actually is quite important for advertising too, but for practical purposes, portfolio school is much better. And yeah, I got hired at Saatchi & Saatchi and as a coordinator, and I didn't quite understand what was going on, but it gave me an opportunity to see what all of the departments in advertising were about. And I realized that what I really wanted to do was make those little commercials, tell those little stories. So I I took it upon myself to go introduce myself to the head of production at Saatchi & Saatchi at the time, and I was like, I want to do what you do. And here's my resume, and I'm sure I was hired for the wrong job. And that worked. And I was really surprised. So I was a production coordinator for 3 months, and then I became an assistant producer because I went and found the woman who ran the department and told her that I had the wrong job. So, and then after that, I just moved up in the industry, and I was a producer. I became a head of production at Wieden & Kennedy. I worked freelance with Joe many years back, and Jimmy. And then Jimmy, when I wanted to make the transition from producer to creative, he really helped in that a lot, since he gave me my job as a creative. And here I am.
No one's route's going to be anything like anyone else's, I'll tell you that now. The route in the business for me started, the lucky part for me was that I happened to go to a school that had an advertising curriculum. And at the time, I was a biochemistry major. So serendipitously, I got tired of biochemistry and sought out advertising, found out I liked it, and then promptly upon graduating was told by counselors that I really should have stayed in biochemistry. Because there was no way I was going to find a job in advertising because, get this, back in '72, they really weren't hiring black people. This is what a counselor told me, who was black at the time. And I wasn't daunted by it. I thought it was peculiar that they would tell me what I couldn't do. And that generally was a great sign that that's what I should do. And I went after it, but they were right. There wasn't a whole lot happening for me, so I ended up getting a job as a sales rep. And as things developed, I had a friend who was in advertising and convinced him to hire me for nothing. And I sold advertising for him. and did it well. And at some point, there were some people in, it was Orange County, California, actually where Jimmy lives now. And one of the advertising guys heard about me and wanted to hire me, so he offered me a job and told me I could do whatever I wanted to do for him. Just tell him what it was I wanted to do. And I said, well, I want to run a creative department. And he gave me that job, and I had a creative department of about 8 people. I wrote, we did a lot of work. It was fun. I enjoyed it. And years later, I decided I didn't want to do that anymore and really sought out the opportunity to merge my company. I started a tiny ad agency along the way with another firm, the Mingo Group here in New York. And that's about when it all kind of started for me on the New York scene, particularly with the merging of the companies. So I've always done creative work and lots of other stuff. And we'll probably talk more about all that other stuff, but I'm good.
I was a painter when I was a kid and was pretty good and won a lot of awards in high school, and decided I was going to go to art school, and my father decided that art school cost money. So I went to Hampton because he was a professor and he could get a remission of tuition. So I went to Hampton, studied to be an art teacher, went to grad school because I taught for a month and realized that was the hardest job in the world and I wasn't cut out for it. I went to graduate school and got an MBA because I thought I liked marketing, which I do, and worked in brand management for a couple of years and then decided I wasn't cut out for that either. So I got a job as a copywriter at a small ad agency, promotion agency, and worked there for 12 years. Thought I was going to be there for a couple of months. Did a freelance job while I was there for Leo Burnett, and the president and the CEO asked at the end of this freelance job, would I like to start an agency? So this is the path you can all take. So I said yes, and my partner at the time of the freelance job and I started Vigilante with a joint venture with Leo Burnett, and did some pretty interesting work for Heineken and Johnny Walker and Major League Baseball, and we did the Oprah car giveaway, and was there for 7 years and wasn't looking to leave, and got a call or got an email from the president of Martin congratulating us on some work we did. And I said, thank you. And then he called me on the phone and said he wanted to have lunch. And we had lunch, and somewhere in the middle of the lunch he asked, what would it take to get you here? And of course that doesn't happen ever either. And since I wasn't looking to leave, that was an easy answer. So I sent him a piece of paper with a really big number on it and just a list of things. And he said, okay. And then I was stuck. So I left Vigilante and I moved to Richmond, Virginia, and I've been at Martin for 8 years, and love it. And I think I did all of this because what I say to people is if you're going to leave and go to something else, if you're going to move, always try to get closer to the thing you think is the perfect thing. And I think at least I have, with every step, gone from something sometimes not good to better and sometimes good to great. That's my short story, my path.
Good path. This is my third one of these, right? So I don't know if you all have been here before, but you probably heard those old school stories back in the day. So you know about mom and dad saying having backup playing the basketball, and then getting the door slammed by a whole bunch of agencies. And then my boy Lewis Williams and Alma Hawkins at Burrell hooked me up, and Alma gave me the gig, and then Lewis taught me all the ABCs. So I had all, the basic moves, fundamentals, and all that kind of stuff down. But so I had the basics, but I didn't have any Harlem Shuffle in my game. So Joe Muse got a little bit of Nike back in the day, like what, 1990, 91, something like that. And y'all too young to remember this cat, but Chuck Yeager, he was a test pilot back in the day, and he used to get to fly all those dangerous planes and do a whole bunch of crazy shit. So Joe let me do a whole bunch of crazy shit, so I got to break all the rules that I learned. And between Burrell and Muse, that's where my game is today. I couldn't have done it without that dude right there on stage. So.
Joe, I heard you talk about the unconventional lanes into the industry and how no way is pretty much the same, especially for you guys up here. So the question I have is, based on your experiences, how important would you say is it for our audience to explore, trying to embrace exploring non-traditional ways into the industry?
Well, first, Jimmy, I was a placeholder for you. You were already doing what you were doing and was bound to do a lot more. But that said, I think the struggle that I have in answering the question has more to do with who you are and not so much to do with non-traditional or traditional. There's a tendency, from what I can tell, is that the people who are attracted to do this are some pretty strange people. They're not your normal get it done a certain way. I mean, Donna's really not a normal person. And I think I knew that when I met her, and she was really good, and I've certainly, one can look at Jimmy and know that he's not normal. But it's the quality of your difference that makes all the difference in your job pursuit. How are you unique, so much so that someone like Danny's going to take a second look? You got to get the second look before you get any look. Yeah, I remember, honest to God, what was in Jimmy Smith's portfolio. And that was 25 years ago? Yep. Now, it was only 2 pieces. He had been in the business for maybe 5 years. He had 2 pieces in his book. And I asked him, why do you have 2 pieces in your book? And he said, because I like these. And they were different, and they were unique, and it was a strange enough opening that we had a second meeting and a third meeting. So the idea of non-conventional, the bad news is that you can't fake it. You can't fake the funk of being different. The ones who do that, you smell them when they walk through the door. You are either someone I want to do business with that's going to be unique for my clients and give me different kinds of work, or you're not. So pursue what's different about you, not so much the stuff that makes you fit into the box. Not that the stuff that makes you fit into the box isn't important. It's real important too. Wear pants to the interview. Shoes and socks are usually pretty good too. But it's the other stuff that makes the difference. And I think exercising that muscle is going to get you to a point of being noticed.
Any more thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with that 100%. I mean, I remember at when I was coming up and you present something that had to do with hip hop or something, and the cats didn't understand it, or the client didn't understand it. And I wasn't trying to do hip hop. I was just trying to do who I was. So it was what it was, because that's what it was, right? So whenever I got in trouble would be when I try and do something. Well, they try and, I didn't do it too often now, but every once in a while I said, well, they keep trying to say, do it like that. Let me try and do it like that. And it would always be a huge failure. So when I zeroed in on what Joe was talking about and just doing who I am. But remember, there's going to be when you do who you are, because you are different, there's going to be a lot of hard knocks on that. You know, I got fired a couple times, yelled at, I yelled back. But, you know, you just got to be comfortable with who you are. This is what I am. This is what I do. I believe I'm good at it, and just refine it. I didn't just take and say, this is who I am, and not make who I was better. You definitely got to improve, but that is the key, is take that spark that God gave you and go with that.
Okay. Staying in the same lane, Dabo, you've talked about how people can sometimes stranglehold their creativity to try to fit into a specific mold or a box. You know, can you shed some light on that? That's why that's not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually the other side of that same coin that Joe was talking about and Jimmy was talking about, that oftentimes I think a lot of people young people are very anxious to get into the industry, and they want it so bad, and you know, that passion is what's gonna kind of see them through some of those hard times. But oftentimes I find that looking at young people's work, that sometimes they limit themselves and they try so hard to kind of do what's already been done, or do what kind of fits the mold correctly. And you know, the important thing is that you do what we already can't do in the agency, right? We're already in agency life. We're kind of constricted by clients' demands and budgets, and producers telling us we can't do things because of logistics. But as you have nothing to lose, and as all you're working with is your ideas and some paper and you know, just your thoughts. What I look for is for young people to show what their true personality is, what their point of differentiation is, what their voice is, and also to do things that we can't do, because you can't have more of the same over and over and over again. We want to see people with vision. We want to see people that bring a unique spin to it. The advertising is always about what's next, what's hot, is breaking the mold. It's not about fitting into it. What's most important, though, what I feel is universal, is that you are a salesman. And I find that to be the most useful universal tool that anybody can have. If you know how to sell ice water to an Eskimo, you will do well in this business. That doesn't mean you're going to be a great creative. It doesn't mean you're going to be a great producer. It doesn't mean you're going to be a great account person. It doesn't mean you're going to be a great client. But ultimately, if you walk into a room and you're able to present something that people didn't know they wanted before you walked in, but couldn't live without it after you walk out, that's the true key to this business. And refining your skills and you know, being groundbreaking in how you approach business is fundamental as well. But if there's one thing that I could say is universal, is just really learning how to get into a room, charm the room, and make a sale, make people want it. And that's what this is really all about, ultimately.
I've learned since being in the industry that building relationships is really important, and the fact of networking has really helped me open up a lot of doors. So this question is for Donna and Joe. You talked about how your connections along the way helped you in your career. And Joe, we've had conversation about the importance of relationship building. Can you just shed some light on the importance of that, and how meeting new people can bring about new opportunities for you, for the audience?
Relationships have actually formed the cornerstone of my career, basically. And I have to say, as far as networking goes, I will be the first to admit that I'm not the most outgoing person. I'm not the person that you're going to find in the party all of the time. That's not me. But I am the person who will seek out the person or the knowledge or the people or the organization that have the information or have, and when I say information could be as small a thing as I was interested in a particular color that one company made, and I had to go find that color because I need it for whatever reason. But that's forming a relationship to me, because once you start seeking out the information and then utilizing that information in a way that is going to be helpful to take you to wherever you're trying to go, whether that's a meeting or to the next level in your work or whatever it is that you're trying to do, then you are forming relationships. And the important thing about relationships is once they start, they don't end. You know, just because you met say I meet one of you here today, I might meet someone right after this today and we might share 5 words, and in 3 years or 10 years even, I might bump into you again, and you'll never know what has happened in your career as well as my career, and we're now on a path together that can lead us both someplace else. So it's important to realize that just because you're making a connection today, it doesn't mean that it's not going to bear fruit 5 years from now or even tomorrow. So what I'm saying is networking is one thing, but relationships are the key. And relationships are things that take time to develop. So.
You know, if you ever find yourself in a room and you don't want to be there, and there's some maven walking around meeting everyone and enjoying the heck out of it, follow her around. Act like you know her, and then you might get a card that way. Call it chumming. You know, you don't have to worry so much about can you do it yourself. I think what you have to be more concerned about, and this gets a little odd because if you look at the nature of what we do, there's not a whole lot of agreement out there that we're any better than car salesmen in terms of credibility or likability or all that other stuff. But that aside, there's a remarkable ability for people to really be nice to each other. And good people sometimes do better than the ones who are good at something. So what I would offer is, you know, what my grandmother used to tell me is treat people the way you want to be treated. And don't hurt nobody. Just be as clear about who they are as you are about yourself. And that comes back. That doesn't just go away. I know it looks like it does, but there's a spirit to it that comes back for you. So doing that more than getting to know people is critically important. Now, the getting to know people part. There are lots of people I know that I forget. I really don't care. I mean, it's okay to say it. The same thing happens to you. There are a lot of people you know that you don't care if you see again. You really don't. And then when they show up, you go, oh, it's you. And they're gone, and that's it. I mean, those are the people you don't want to be. But that happens. You want to be the person that people remember. And that requires you to connect to them, and sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. Don't trip on when you don't. Just don't hurt them. Just go on to the next person, and you'll connect. I promise you, connecting with people in this business is not as hard as it seems, but you will have to kiss a lot of frogs. A lot. But don't worry about it. You'll get over that. You'll get over it, and you'll meet people. It'll make a difference. And the ones who stick it out are the ones who make it. The ones who don't, they go on and they do other things. You have to decide which one are you.
I'd just like to add to what he's saying, but in terms of the workplace, because when I came along, and again, I started in brand management, but this was for agencies as well, there were a lot of programs for you to get to know people within the corporation. And for instance, when my first company was Colgate, and there was a 6-month training program, and there was also a mentoring program. And so it allowed you to get around in the corporation to know who everybody was, to talk to people, to understand the various areas that you could go to. And it helped you to get a jump start on really being able to leverage everything that's in the corporation and start to build those relationships internally in the corporation. Also, people kind of at the senior level would gravitate toward you if you were new at that time because that was the way they were taught. That basically doesn't happen anymore. You know, you don't have training programs, you don't have mentoring programs, but it's still very important for you to make sure that you are meeting people within the corporation, you understand who can help in what area, and that you're building relationships inside the corporation so that you can advance what you do. I mean, I think I got my promotions based on just the fact that I had great relationships with people internally. I mean, I was smart, don't get me wrong, but other than that, I think it was that I had great relationships. We used to hang out after work, and I knew their family, they knew mine, you know, and that's also how you can help to move forward with your agenda, is to seed that with someone internally and then be able to have them help you to carry it forward. So at any rate, that doesn't exist pretty much anymore, so you have to be your own advocate in that area now, which means that you need to go at aggressively understanding who's in the agency and what relationships that you like. And you know, you have to ask people to mentor you these days. It just doesn't come naturally sometimes, but it's work that's well done. You have to be almost entrepreneurial in that sense because in the agency business, one of the things is that sometimes you being fired has nothing to do with your performance. You lose an account in an agency, they don't need all the people. So you're laid off, you know, not laid off because you don't come back, but you know, you are no longer with the job. So it's a lot of things that I think internally, what, you know, both Don and Joe were saying, need to be, you know, externally needs to be done internally to make sure that you are maximizing everything that you have in the company that you may work for or that you currently work for.
You brought up a great point. That was actually my next question, you know, because I wanted to talk about mentorships and training and stuff like that. And, you know, Danny, you always talk about the importance of leaders and mentors in this business. And for individuals who've already broken into the industry, you know, how do we sustain their growth and keep them encouraged to eventually become like you guys up here on the stage?
Yeah, and this question probably is about an age group more than it is a race or ethnicity. Yeah. You know, millennials, 22, 35-ish. There's a whole different, and I have one at home. And I have two at home. There's a whole, well, they're not at home. There's a whole, yeah, they're not at home, which is good. Yeah, well, you got it. That'll happen. I think part of the issue we're facing as mentors and leaders and people who've been in the industry in a while is we probably don't really understand the generation that we're hiring. And I say that because I see us losing a lot of people that we've brought in. And I think they're part of the reason is we don't get what it is they need. We're not providing what it is they want. Things like annual reviews. A 27-year-old doesn't want to hear at the end of a year how they're doing. They want to know at the end of the meeting how they did. I think there's a need for things like instant feedback. I think the deals that we're cutting, it's not just money anymore. Sometimes it's flexibility to work. Sometimes they want to work at the coffee shop and don't see why that's not okay and why they have to be in the building every day. I think part of what we need to do is have a better understanding of the way millennials are thinking. And we lose them, I think, because we don't really know. And part of, I think for me, part of mentorship is this two-way communication. If I have to learn from the people I'm mentoring and talking to, because I'm a dinosaur in this industry. And for me to understand what it is they need, I have to listen. And that's a hard thing to do. Listening takes a lot of work. So I think for us, partly is not just getting people in, but understanding what it is they need when they get there, what challenges them, and I think they also are looking for reasonable goals that are set that they can attain, that they can point to. And a lot of us are used to kind of just going to the job, doing the job, putting your nose down and working. I think there's a whole different mentality and way of thinking. So for me, a big part of mentorship is not just getting people in, but helping them stay and helping them want to be in the industry and helping them figure out what it is they want, because it is different than when we came up. It's just not the same expectations or desires.
Okay. So in about 10 minutes, we're going to open the floor for questions. So if you all just want to get your questions ready. But this question is for everybody. In a lot of other industries, there's mention of the glass ceiling when it pertains to women and minorities. In your creative agencies, what do you do to ensure the glass ceiling doesn't have a stranglehold on capable minorities and women? And what can other agencies do to improve on that glass ceiling?
Spike DDB is a pretty small shop. We're a boutique shop, and the people who run it are minorities and women, so I don't necessarily think there is necessarily glass ceiling, but my experience in other agencies and general market agencies, I think a big part of the issue is that we're very willing and able to ask our clients to take risks, right? We're like, well, I don't understand why the client won't buy that. They're too scared, right? They won't take a risk. It's not that much money. What do they got to lose? But within agency culture, we're very protective of our jobs and our situations, and a lot less likely to take risks ourselves. And so I think we have to kind of look ourselves in the mirror at times and say, are we asking clients and others to do things that we ourselves are not willing to do? Not everything has to be comfortable. Not everything has to be fit into a box per se. It's important that we're able to give people chances to make people uncomfortable. I think that's a part of our job, is to not have everybody so damn comfortable all the time, including our clients. I mean, it's also another thing too, from just a client side, that for those African Americans and women and minorities on the client side, just because you're in the boat doesn't mean you're not supposed to rock it. The only way we're going to make progress and the only way things ever change is when people risk their own situation, put themselves on the line to stand up for something that they believe in or someone that they believe in, to say, hey, you know what, this person deserves it, this person is smart, this person can add a lot to what we're doing, not just because they are, just because they're a minority or just because they're a woman or different by any stretch of the imagination. So I think we all have to be willing to take personal risk. We have to use our relationships. We talked about up here on the panel, stressing our relationships. Well, those relationships don't mean much if they're only for the betterment of ourselves. We have to make sure that we use those relationships to create situations and opportunities for others that we believe in. Because ultimately, that's going to come back to you anyway, right? It's that old law of karma, that you do right by others and you help others, and ultimately it will kind of come back and make your situation better and give you more opportunities. So I think all around, people have to just be willing to take more risk, rock the boat, and get their hands a little dirty.
I think also, just to add to that, there are going to be barriers. There is no doubt about it. There are going to be barriers, and I think that it would be helpful to understand what those barriers are, and then to develop a plan around how you can at least, attempt to knock down those barriers. In working with various corporations, and we work with all Fortune 500 companies, the larger companies. And one of the things that we constantly face is trying to get them to do other than what they understand. And that's a real problem, because you're trying to be relevant in terms of for us, the African American market. but at the same time, you have to educate people, your clients, so that they can accept it and approve it and move forward with it. So you know those barriers exist, and so what we try to do is plan for that and to make sure that we do our work on, you know, who we're talking to and how educated in terms of what we want them to be they are, and what we have to bring to the table to make them feel comfortable so that we can move forward with something that is different and something that will resonate. And that's a barrier. And there are other barriers within the agency based on your client that it would be great to research and to make sure that you have a plan to deal with it.
And I'd like to add a little bit to that too, and in a different way. I think there are barriers, absolutely. I've been extremely lucky in my career in that I've been able to, every time there was a ceiling, I've been able to burst through that ceiling and go and do something else. And that is largely due to the relationships I've had and also the experiences that I've had along the way. But I think also some of that has to do with the fact that I don't let other people limit me. So, and I can't tell you what my limits are because I don't know. I mean, of course, we all have them, but if you go into a situation or you go into a workplace thinking that you're going to be limited before you ever do anything, you are already limiting yourself. So there's enough already in place within organizations that you have to get over and stumble through, and there's already enough in place for you to go in, to add to that by limiting what you think you can do or what your potential is. Just because someone says there is a glass ceiling doesn't make it so. I mean, I know that sounds very naive and sort of crazy, but what I'm talking about is a way of thinking. So, I mean, when you go into some place, you have to think that your potential is whatever you make it. And then if you go into it with that intentionality and you have the work ethic behind it, because it does take a lot of work, then some kind of way things open up. You meet the right people, doors open, the ceiling, I mean, things happen.
I guess what I'd add to that, a lot of this stuff, I think Donna hit it on the head. It may sound very naive and all that kind of stuff. It's, in principle, it should work like this. And to be honest with y'all, it is not. You can do all these things that we're saying, and you're going to keep running into the wall, keep running into the wall, keep running into the wall. So the way you overcome that wall, the ceiling, whatever you want to call it, is you have to be, excuse my language, you have to be a motherfucker. You have to be extremely good. This dude right here, he laid back, yeah, I did that, and then he called on. He did that because he's bad. I mean, he's dope, right? And Joe was up here coming up talking about multicultural, starting a multicultural agency before anybody was talking about anything. That was in 1990 or something like that. I mean, the vision that he had for that was incredible. Donna did exactly what she said. She talks about no limit. She was a producer. She calls me up I called her because I want to bring her on as a producer, and she said, I don't want to be a producer. I want to be a creative. But Donna, you've never created anything. And that's where that no limits thing comes from. But she pointed out, yes, I have. And she pointed out what she had done and she was persistent. And next thing you know, okay, you're creative. Yeah, okay. The Jedi mind trick or something. So all you guys, Jared would call and email and email. It was no way you were going to forget him.
I'm Jared, by the way.
Yeah, he's Jared down there.
I'm Warren.
Where's J-Dub and Kentucky and Ace? Where are y'all at? Y'all around here? Stand up right quick. Yep. Okay. The bald-headed cat is Kentucky. He'll tell you his real name. Ace is the other one. Those two dudes, Ace was a intern, and he was an accountant, on the account side over at Chiat, and Kentucky was answering phones. Those dudes would keep coming into the office, keep coming in the office. This is when I was at Chiat. Hey, you got anything for us? Got anything for us to do? They bugged the purity crap out of me with, And so I'm trying to say they weren't guys who were going to take no for an answer, right? And so finally we gave them a little assignment. Okay, give them a little assignment and they'll bomb and they'll go away. Dudes knocked it out of the park for Gatorade, and we presented it to Gatorade. These were people that nobody at Chiat wanted to touch. They didn't want anything to do with them. And they saw their opportunity and they ran through it. And then where's Jessica? Oh, there she is. You all better not do this. She already pulled that trick. It ain't gonna work again. Jessica, last year, met her here. I mean, she had been emailing and calling and talking on the phone here. And so I came here to where all the black people, there's Jessica. She goes, hey, I'm Jessica. I was like, oh, damn, that's that girl keeps calling me. Hey, how you doing? Good. And we talked and she showed her book. The book wasn't that good. A couple months later, hey, I'm moving to LA. You got a job? No, I'm just moving. And I said, all right then. Well, that's good. When you get here, we'll introduce you to some people. And, I'll send you over to Chiat, I'll send you over to David and Goliath and have you meet some people. So she comes to the agency, no money, nothing. It was like that Stevie Wonder song. I don't know if y'all remember Living for the City,
Skyscrapers, everything.
I introduced her to everybody at the agency, and I just sent her over to the creative department, told them go hang out with those guys and pick up some things, and then when you get ready to leave, I'll give you some names of some other agencies to to meet. At the end, it was either the end of the day or the next day. Donna comes into the office with Bobby. Bobby's my CFO. He's here too. Comes in the office, and Roberto's in there. He's another partner at Amusement Park. Comes in the office. So we got a new intern. I said, oh, we do? You met somebody you met? Yeah, you brought her over. I said, who was that? She goes, Jessica. So, again, that trick's already been played. You got to come up with something new. But you have to be, that was, and I mean this with love because I was that way, that was brain damage for her to do that.
Yeah.
To have no money, I'm just going to move there and, God's going to hook it up, it'll be all right, and we'll make that happen. But that persistence of not taking no for an answer. Now hers took about a year. My big break, like Joe said, it took me 5 years. And I met a comedian who said it takes about 6 to 12 years to find your true voice as a comedian, and where you're really zeroed in on what you're really good at, and it starts happening. So it may be a quick thing, but don't be scared, don't be scared if it takes a minute to get it done.
Jimmy, I know you like the mic and everything.
I'm done.
I know. All right, we gotta get to it. All right. In the essence of time, we can only take about 3 questions. So if you could just, if you have specific questions for the panelists, we're gonna choose 3 people from the audience. I can't even see these lights all in my eye. Oh, he learning already. That's what I'm talking about. Y'all better run up here.
The funny thing is that dude was asleep for the first 45 minutes of this presentation, and now he wants to jump up and ask questions. Ain't that some bullshit? Go back to sleep, man.
Don't ask our names.
Actually, my name is Jose Garcia. I'm a human resources engineer, and my mission is to save the soul of corporate America. But my question is for you, Mr. Ché, since you thought I was sleeping. And you said earlier, though, that about taking risks, and for a lot of us, it's a terrifying thing to do. How do we galvanize others to, feel for our story and help them want to take the risk with us so that it's easier?
Well, you have to hedge the bet, right? You got to show that you're smart. You got to show that you're not gonna get in the building and start fires. That ultimately that the risk is worth the reward, right? That there's potential. It's not just taking risk for risk's sake. It's doing it because it makes sense. It's the right thing to do. That the only thing that's really standing in the way of it is fear. And once you expose people to the fact that fear is the ultimate enemy, right, of anything, then suddenly there's common ground to be shared. So it's being worth the risk as a person, as an individual. Are you competent? Are you smart? Are you talented? Are you creative? Are you ambitious? Are you all the things that people want? And the only thing that's stopping it really ultimately is because, well, maybe we don't have anyone in this department that kind of looks like you, or I don't know, the client might be freaked out if you wore those pants to the meeting. But ultimately, those things start to melt away after a while if you prove yourself worthy of it. I know you want to get to other questions, but I'll keep it short. Hopefully that'll do it. If not, take a nap. Holler at me when we get backstage.
I can show. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. My name is Danielle McCoy, and I go to SCAD at Monzo. And I have a question for Donna. I was just wondering what exactly is your creative process, because I find, I'm still trying to find myself as a designer, and I'm in the process of creating something, but I can't identify the process. So I'm just interested to know what exactly you do to get your juices flowing and, that type of stuff.
Well, if I were to have a process, it would go something like, I read a lot. I read a lot of different things. I mean, I read a lot. So once I've read something, or if I'm trying to look for inspiration, I'll pick up a magazine, a book, or something. I'll turn on NPR. My car is tuned to NPR because there's so much fascinating information on NPR, and it makes my mind wander. But then when I actually need the idea or the thought of something to come, I go running. I'll go running, I move. I'll surf. Surfing is my new thing. I'll get on a surfboard. I'll do anything that gets me moving and my mind not necessarily on the thing that I'm trying to do. And so in doing that, usually the idea will come, or I will get motivated to start doing something. But it's a combination of exposing myself to a lot of things and activity, movement.
One more question?
Hello, my name is Stanley Hines. I'm a junior at Temple University, and pretty much at my school, I'm trying to start up a new organization called Temple Black Advertising Society with my partner here, Xavier. And this is for Joe Muse. If you had any advice for us as far as starting up as a minority advertising organization at Temple University.
Let me see if I understand you. Did you just say starting up a minority advertising association
Yeah, for advertising.
at Temple?
Yeah.
Well, my advice would be don't make it minority advertising. My advice is if your interests and you've got buddies who are interested in the same thing, let's say surfing, I wouldn't start a black surfing society or a black woman surfing with dreads society. I mean, the thing that you're expressing, and I just want to be very clear about it, has got nothing to do with race, ethnicity, any of that. That who you are as a human being is communicating an interest. And take the high ground in that. Now, if what you want to do is things that have tangents to issues regarding politics and socialization and hiring and diversity, do that. But take the high ground at Temple. Start an advertising association and call it whatever you want.
Except for minority.
Exactly. They call it whatever you want. Let them decide what it is that you do, but you do the thing that touches you and touches your heart.
Thank you, everyone, for being so engaged, being such a wonderful audience. If you could just give our panelists another round of applause.